He's just on another phone call. It's a little chaotic at our house right now.
Okay, okay.
Just
All
just
right.
carry on. Just carry on, okay?
All righty. Yes. So today is the 26th of November, second day of the NO cardinality of Lab 21. Um, so, okay. Before we go and look at Red 147, I am going to share with you some of my notes from Red 148, okay? So that we have contact with the material from the program of this lab first, and then we go into the questions for Red 47, okay? Um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I think that's best. I didn't plan it, so I think it's gonna be best. So I'm just gonna share with you the document. It's in Spanish, okay? So I'm gonna be reading that, translating it while we look at it. Hold on one second. I have a mess here in my computer. Where is it? Here. Where are you? I can't see you. Oh, there we go. Can you see the document? You guys, can you see the document? Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. So we are now going through the task of the Toganeson. We have gone through the task of the Toganeson. So why does Ale was very excited in this last Red program? She was celebrating. She said that this was a celebratory program. She was celebrating all along. She was really happy. Okay, and one of the reasons why she was so happy, I'm going to share with you the periodic table because she says really important things, really interesting things about it, so that we can see while we look at the table. Here we go. Okay, so Alice says that the Red program has fulfilled a very important task, which is getting us through the bridge of hydrogen, the hydrogen bridge, okay, which is this one. The promise steps of the table. Why? Because we can see here 148. You see the number? And the Red program of Lab 21 was Red program 148. Okay, so this is what Alejandra said that was very important and very celebratory. We have gone through the task of the Toganeson, specifically inside or within Lab 21, which is very important. The task of the Toganeson begins here, right? 119, which is triggered by the last element on the table, as it is known socially, which is Oganeson. We know Oganeson, the way that we understand or understand it in LGC, is the octave of the context, or the octave that regulates the context or the unified field, right? Which means that if this is the last element in the periodic table socially, it means that it didn't have the last enough resources to sustain or support an update of this level, an update, right? That's why we needed a reformulation of the whole periodic table. So what is this component of update, of connection between the materialized functioning octave of the context? How do we connect that to the antimatter? How do we recover that connection to the antimatter? Well, that's where we find Toganeson. So why was Ale so excited about this? Because Toganeson, what are we adding? Why are we adding to Oganeson? Why are we adding the T? Because we're talking about 21, base 21. Base 21 is related to barra tal, okay? La barra tal, because T is 21. But we're going to see this further right now. So we're going to add the base 21 to the Oganeson, and that's going to take us to Toganeson, which is this. So we are finishing the task of the Toganeson inside Lab 21, 2025, with red program 148. Okay? So that's the first thing she says on the table. We have gone on the program. We have gone through the task of the Toganeson 119 through 148 of the table through the red programs. Okay, so this was like a celebratory program of the red emissions. Okay, so the next thing, what is Lab 21? What is Lab 21? We know that it is the 10th lab in relation to others. So it is the creation together with the other. It is what we are going to create together. Okay. That is if we are going to read it at a human scale. But if we read that at a solar scale, what would be the context of the sun? It would be the rest of the stars. Okay. So Lab 21 would be the creation with the other, and in the context of the sun, that would mean the creation along with the other stars. Okay, so another thing that Alice says is that the fact that we have arrived to this point, well, she continues talking about the importance, of course, also about yesterday, which is 25 of 11. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the importance of us arriving to this specific point is very, very important. It is a big deal. It means that we are progressing. The solar code is progressing, and it's all good news. She said that she was celebrating and in anticipation. Another thing that she mentioned, let me shift the share, is that the day of the emission was right here, okay? On this day, 21st of November. And Alcides Carrion, we should have very fresh always Alcides Carrion, because he's always an important referent in the development. Let's recall Alcides Carrion. Alcides Carrion is Peruvian, native code 51. The code 51 globally has to do with the preservation of our analogic existence. So it's very important. Alcides Carrion was a doctor that he injected himself with a virus that was affecting his community to see how he could fix it from the inside. Okay, that we are talking about a solar consciousness there. That's a solar consciousness. The person Alcides Carrion, we're talking about a solar consciousness there, in another scale, of course. So what happened with Alcides Carrion was that there's so many metrics, amazing metrics, that have to do with him and with the beginning of the development, with he has very important metrics in relation to the 10 missing days in apparatus 396, and many other things, right? And one of the main things that we were able to capitalize in the development in relation to Alcides Carrion was that he died on the 39th day from the day he injected himself with the virus. On the 39th day, he passed away. And he passed away on the 4th of October. Okay? So what does this tell us? It's going to tell us that it wasn't the intention of Alcides Carrion wasn't the one that failed. What failed was the solar code in this case, because it wasn't, the missing days were affecting everything forward from that. Yeah, there was, and also another very important thing that we capitalized from Alcides Carrion was the fixing of the quarantine, the capacity of update of the third orbital, 39. Capacity of update of the third orbital. That wasn't working either. So very important, Alcides Carrion. Now, on the day where the emission was presented, the 21st of November, Alcides Carrion had a specific number of days of occurrence, okay? What is that? Let me put it here, so I just don't have to, it's here. So I'm sure you can recognize this, right? 1461 is the number of occurrence days since the birth of Alcides Carrion up until that specific day. Okay. Now, we know that 1461 is the measure of a unit of an apparatus 4 years, 3 regular years with 1 year that has an extra day, which is a day of the update. Now, Alejandra mentioned something that for me was quite new. I don't know if she had mentioned this or explained 1461 in this way before. But she said that 1461 is a unit of interstellar code. A unit of interstellar code. So I'm going to send the ball to you guys. Why do you think that Alejandra is saying that 1461 is a unit of interstellar code? Anybody? Can anybody say? Because I think that we should have this clear.
It's because of an apparatus? Because of the apparatus?
But more specifically?
Then I don't know, but because it's the 4 years is one apparatus, and then that connects to the solar system.
Okay, but she's saying interstellar.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to that then. Interstellar code. What is the meaning of the 366th day of a leap year? What is the meaning of that? We know that Alejandra has said constantly that that is the update. That is a day of update. It is where that little piece, that fraction of time, we have 365 days and a fraction, so that the Earth can make a full movement around the sun, right? But we have that extra day. So on the leap year, we add that extra day where everything that the Earth has gathered from the sun, the solar consciousness, and the Earth in that extra day gathers all of that, and it is like the adjustment. It is an adjustment of everything that is new. So that 366th day is like very important. Now, this is related to a support from the civilized expressed universe. That extra day that the sun has it represents a support from the expressed civilized universe. It is like a help to the sun because it is a young star. Now, this is going to take us always to go and reason about the secular years, because secular years do not have that extra day. Secular years are years where the sun has to do codification at a subatomic level on its own without any support and any help from the civilized express universe. That's why secular years are so important. And that's going to take us to go reason which are the last secular years: 1700, 1800, 1900. What is 789? Particular, subatomic instance for sun. We're talking about a solar instance. There is no anatomy, there are no humans there, okay? Now, what happened? This is always something that we have to have very clear. What happened in 1914? we have the First World War. Because why? Because sun wasn't able to have very good quality at a subatomic level on that instance, on the last secular year. So what's happening now is that this Andromedan instruction is, which 25 of 11 was yesterday, right? 2511, we'll talk about that in a little bit. That Andromedan signal is providing support to fix all of the errors in the code of the solar consciousness. Yes, that's what LGC is. So that is the reason why 1461 is a unit of interstellar code. Because 1460 doesn't have that extra day, and we're talking about a secular year where it's not going to have any support. So all of this, along with Alcides Carrion and his days of occurrence to the 21st of November of Lab 21, yeah, we're talking about something very important there, okay? Maybe we're not going to be understanding the full length of it in this instant, but I'm sure that we can gather, we can grasp the importance of this, how far we have come. And the data is corroborating everything that we have gathered in anticipation. So the data was already there since before we were born, yeah? But if we didn't have this formation, if we didn't have these construction of previous concepts, then we wouldn't be able to interpret this data. I mean, we would maybe see, yeah, days of life of Alcides Carrion, but if we hadn't worked with the concept and understanding logically with the solar logic what 1461 is, which is a unit of interstellar code, we wouldn't be understanding what that meant. Okay, but the data was there since before we were born. So the specific reading that Alejandra makes of this days of occurrence of Alcides Carrion is that he is inscripted in the collective memory of the interstellar flow. He's being inscripted in the collective memory of the interstellar code. Now, personally, I cannot say anything further from that reading because that goes over my head. So we're just gonna leave it there, okay? Inscripted in the collective memory of the interstellar flow. All right. Now, what happened in 2024? The reformulation of the table, okay? Because we have 9 lines when before we only had 7. We now have 9 in the material instance, and then we have 2 lines, -1 and -2 in the negative. So we have 11 lines now, which is the way to administrate the context from the re-axis. Okay, so that is like the function of these 11 lines of the periodic table. It's gonna provide the capacity to manage the context from the re-axis, because the re-axis what is that word? Let me find that word. I can't translate it right now. Regir. Okay, rule. Let's say rule. The re-axis is going to rule the consciousness of one particle inside a field that is public and collective. Now, that is a very clear description of the re-axis. Can you see? It's going to rule the consciousness of a particle inside a field that is public and collective. Okay. So the fact that we are beginning to be able to follow the transparency of the solar code from inside the unified field tells us that we have gone quite far, that we have progressed, and that we have arrived to a specific point. The bridge of hydrogen. We have crossed a bridge. Okay, so the table is a matrix that has 224 spaces, but it only has 118 elements assigned to those spaces. Let's go back. Oh, are you looking at the table? What are you looking at? Let's look at the table. One second. Okay, so why is she saying that? It has always been a matrix of 224 spaces, but we had all of this in blank. There was no assignation of anything in those spaces, right? It was blank, but it was always a matrix of 224 spaces. So the last one, which is organezon, represents the octave that regulates 11 as a unified field. But that regulation, that the octave that represents the regulation of 11, that is from the perspective of the container, which is NO. So organezon is always going to be related to the SE cardinality, to the NO space in the graph, in the musical notes graph, okay? But in relation to the SE, to the space of SE, is going to be different. So the SE cardinality from the perspective of ON and from the perspective of SI is going to be different, because ON has to do with the memories of the container. SE is going to be a particular observer that has an implication inside that cardinality. So ON is public, SI is particular. Yes? Okay, so what is SI? How is SI going to anticipate everything that anatomical destination that is implied, that is implemented in the unified field? How is SI going to anticipate everything that implicated aspect is going to ask of it? Because the anatomic aspect that is implemented inside the SE cardinality is going to be petitioning things that the SI aspect, the architect, didn't have pre-programmed. Because inside the cardinality, there's going to be variables that the architect just doesn't have. It's going to have to construct them. So in order for this situation to function properly, we need the clave de sol. Clave de sol is the key of sol. It is the key through which we are going to be making interpretations of the flow of signals. Clave de sol, key of sol. It is the key, the frequency through which we're going to be making interpretations of the flow of signals. And we need this, like this is a requirement to be implemented now inside this unified field from now on. We need to have this. This is going to be a new requirement. We need that. So through the key of sol is how the part that is implemented inside the unified field is going to be able to be anticipated of everything that is going on in the unified field. Because C is particular. So we can't, like the architect can't possibly have all of the data from the SE cardinality. That is why there is a part that is anatomically implemented inside the field, so that there is a management between the architect and the part that is implemented anatomically. Yes? So that's what we call flow of signals. Solar consciousness, when we're talking about solar consciousness, we are not talking about human experience. There is no anatomy. Now, we should have this, of course, quite clear by now, that it is the primordial identity should be in the antimatter. If we are identifying mainly with human experience, then we are not going to be having an anticipation that is going to work very properly, because we're going to be late. The anatomic instance is the last instance. So if we are identifying mainly with the anatomic experience, we're going to be late all the time. It is the opposite of what Sol is trying to do, because Sol, what Sol is trying to do is trying to teach us or form us in anticipating situations before they impact directly in the experience and blow everything over. So that is like why it's so important that we have an identity that is mainly immaterial and secondarily material. My human identity is secondary, not primary. My primary identity needs to be immaterial in order for anticipation to function properly. So that is what we're talking about solar consciousness. That is where we're talking about participating in the solar consciousness. But this can only happen, or this can only function, if we have that reasoned and if we have been working with that anti-material identity. Because if we relate everything from LGC, if we relate it to ourselves as humans, the code, the personal code in the personal area is not going to function. Okay, it's not going to be very good. So Ale always says, the main thing, like the main value that she assigns to experience is to see the quality of the code, because her focus is improving the quality of the code, right? So if my experience is not a very good one, then probably I need to report those faults and try to find if I am identifying more with the human experience, if my anticipation is working, if my processor is working, if my how my flow of signals, how am I managing the flow of signals in my antenna? Is it going directly into the reactives? Is it going directly through like an automatic interpretation of it? Am I going slower or faster? Because if I'm going slower, that means that the observer is active. My observer is active, but the more I practice it, it is like exercise. I become more efficient in doing that. That's why we need to exercise our processor in differentiating the different scales, in reasoning these things, because if we're not reasoning, then we're not constructing concepts. We're not actively constructing concepts, because that's why it's called consciousness, not unconscious. Like I just listen to this. No, I have to reason it, because I need to codify the consciousness into the mind, which is what a concept is. A concept is a space in the mind. It is a mental space. That's what a concept is. So that's what we're doing. That's what we are creating. And that's going to be the frame that is going to allow us to reason in clave de sol. Because we can be reasoning in any other kind of key of the cosmos. But do we want that? Or do we want to have a better quality of the code? Then I need to be reasoning in clave de sol. Okay, so back to the table. What did we do with the table in 2024? Well, it began in the Ring of Fire of 2023. That's like when it first began. And then this whole reconstruction of the table happened all along 2024, right? So what did we do? Those 106 spaces that were missing, that weren't assigned to anything, were complemented with those 118. So 118 plus 106, we have 224, right? So we have an assigned space for every point in the matrix of 224. Now, another thing that Alice says, she was like, okay, when we did this routing from 118 up to 224, she didn't know that day 224 was the 18th of August. So what do we have? And for me, this was one of the first times that the explanation of barra tal was more clear. Second. So Oganezon is 118. Oganezon is 118, right? And then we have, I do it like this because it's easier for me to, when I look at it. So 118 is right here. Where is it? Oganezon, right here, right? That is day 118 of the year. Now, the first time that we went through this routing of the table and we finished it here in 224, right? We did 118 to 148, and then we went like this. That's why Alice says it's being administrated, like it gives us a capacity of administrating the axis. That's why it goes like this, okay? Now, 224, space 224 is the 11th of August. So we have day 118, and then we have date 111 of the 8th, the 11th of August. But what is the difference here? We have the barra tal. Barra tal, okay? This is the first time for me personally that was more clear, the way she explained it. So what is it that this barra tal bring to the table? It is the base 21 of the al particle, partícula al. So let's look at the musical notes diagram. The al particle is the particle. We're talking about subatomic instance, the same as C, because both of these are both have to do with the particle at a subatomic scale. But the difference between al and Si is that Si is a private space, while Al is a public space because it belongs to the source itself. We're talking about primary unfoldment. Primary unfoldment, this is the particle, like the drop in the ocean. Yes, it is a drop, but it is also the ocean. It is not separated from the ocean. While this one is separated from the ocean. So we're talking about secondary unfoldment, where we have a private management of a specific occurrence that the consciousness of this particle is prepared to have. Because if this consciousness has made a conscious decision of doing something like this, it means that it has an evolutionary appetite. So if we are here presently, it means that we have evolutionary appetite. It is not going to be the same as other particles that are just implemented here with another kind of license. It's going to be a user license. People that are just looking to experience, right? Which is okay. But in our case, we are working on our licenses to work in the construction and improvement of the containers. so that those contents can have a better quality of experience. Yes. So the difference between AL and SI is that AL belongs to the source, not separated from the source. It is a particle, but it's not separated from the source. SI is a particle that's separated from the source and that has a private space to save everything that it has acquired in this evolutionary episode of a specific particle inside the secondary unfoldment. So that's the difference between AL and SI. Now, let's go to barra tal. What's barra tal? It is a base 21, T is 21, of the particle AL. Base 21 is 12 and 21 is like a communication that goes back and forth. We know that we have Sol, Mercury, Venus, and Earth. 12 and 21 is like the back and flow, the emission, and then the response of that emission. It is a flow of communication between the third orbital and the sun, in our case, because we're implemented specifically here. So 12 is going from sun to Earth. 21 is from Earth to sun. It is a communication. 21 is going to be like a, what's that word? Like a response from what has been worked on in 12, then there's a response in 21. Now, okay, that said, base 21 of the particle AL, what are we saying when we're saying base 21 of the particle AL? There, we're not talking about the solar system, because if we're talking about AL, we're going to be talking about the primary unfoldment. So if we take that same reasoning of 21 to the primary unfoldment, it's going to mean that there's going to be a response of the AL particle inside the matter. So there's going to be a communication from antimatter into matter. It's a response from the AL particle. But why is this so important? Because the AL particle is connected direct. It is part of the source. So whatever happens when we're working with the barra tal, that's going to represent an update, because barra tal is 951. So it's going to be an update in the administration of the reception. But what are we going to be receiving, and where are we going to be receiving it from? If we are talking about the base 21 of the particle AL, we're going to be receiving things that were definitely not pre-programmed. They're going to be completely unprecedented and unimaginable. So all of that just to explain the difference between 118 and the 11th of August. That's going to be the difference. Because the days between day 118 and 224, what did we do in the middle? What did we do in the middle? From here, we went all of this to find 224. So here we are ready to receive that response, that base 21 of the AL particle. Yeah? So Ale says, I did not know when we began that something that triggered Toganeson began on day 118, and I didn't know that by the end of 224 we were going to find the 11th of August. Okay? So AL is the particle in the source. That's why the barra tal provides anticipation, and it's gonna the response of that is gonna be something that we can't be able to imagine, because it is coming directly from the antimatter. It has nothing to do with the memories. Okay, so that is like a celebration for Alejandra. The fact that we have a lab 21 that has enough maturity for us to be able to see these things that are iconic. We have, yeah.
Oh, just a question. So, okay, so first, this only works out in a Decide year, right? On the leap
Yes,
year.
this is only yes.
Yes. So then are we saying that on day 225, we begin to receive on the Decide year?
On a Decide year, we would have to go and look at the table on a Decide year, and we would have to go and write down the dates, and we would have to go and like do some desk work. We would take I need to take some, like, in order for me to answer your question, I need to take like 15-20 minutes to write down the metrics so that I can see it and then explain it. But yes, it is going to be different in a
Right,
leap year.
But wouldn't that be right? No, that's clear in the leap year. So, I mean, are we receiving like from the whole apparatus in the fourth year of the apparatus on
Yes.
starting on day 225,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, which would be August 19th.
No. It would be, okay. On a leap year,
Right, because this was 2024, which was a leap year.
on a leap year, this would be August 12th, 2024. I mean, day 224 would be the 12th of August in a leap year, and 225 on a leap year would be the 13th of August, which is the native date of Alcides Carrion. 224, 225. Yeah.
So how did it work out to be the 8th of August last year?
No, it's the 11th of August.
I'm sorry.
Maybe yeah.
That was my American thing.
The American thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the 11th of August. But we're saying now.
No,
all right,
last year it was the 12th of August. The 224 was the 12th of August.
Yes.
Last year.
Right. Okay, so we're saying last year's 224. Right. So the 12th of August, right, which is what you just said then.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Yep. No, I
Yes.
just switched the dates.
Yeah, it's maybe because of the way you guys do the dates.
Yeah, I know.
That it got mixed up in your neurology.
That's right.
Okay. Yep. All right. So okay, so the fact that we have a lab 21 that has allows us to have a maturity to be able to see all of this, right? For example, on event 30, we discovered the delay between the Gregorian and the Julian calendar. We discovered that delay on event 30. But it wasn't until like, I don't know, 8 years, 10 years later, I don't know how many years have gone since event 30, that we discovered the days of occurrence of Mendeleev hugging those 10 days with his 70,000 days and 70,011 days. The days of occurrence of Mendeleev hugging, remember? Let me share it so we can have a refreshed perspective of that. Where is it? Here we go. Open it. Here it is. For me, it's like refreshing to see this in my right? So on event 30, we discovered the delay between the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar. Remember, Alejandra was so angry to find this, and she hated the Gregorian calendar. Then later she loved it. But that was 30-something events ago. But this data was already there. This data was there since before we were born. But we received the signal so that we could see that we were able to see this data only when we were able to interpret it. So this is like the level of precision that we are having with this so elegant instruction. Okay? Because if we saw the same thing with Alcides Carrion in his days of occurrence, if we didn't have previous formation and concepts, we wouldn't be able to make a proper reading of this situation. Okay? So, so we had the data since before we were born, but not the capacity to interpret them because the solar consciousness was asleep. The solar code was not very good. But she said the solar consciousness was asleep. She said that specifically, and I think I haven't heard her say that specifically. The solar code was bad. It didn't synchronize. There was so much friction. So what we're going to be seeing from now on is the synchronization of all the destinies because the solar code is repairing itself. So we're going to be finding a lot of synchronicity. And this is also related, remember, the first 14 days from the last secular year, years, I said years, yes, 1900, last secular year, on the 14th year after that secular year, we had a world war. Why? Because the solar code did not synchronize. Did not synchronize with, so what did that provoke? Friction in the contents. Because the structure wasn't functioning properly. So of course, the content was completely disoriented. What are we seeing? That on the 13th day of the logic, we are just beginning the 14th year. Is the solar code synchronizing? Yes, I would say yes. Because what happened on the 13th year? The reparation of the table. So the 14th, what do we have on the 14th year of the instruction? We have synchronicity. Because the solar code is being repaired. Okay, so let's talk about Andromeda 2511. Yes. If we look at this date in the routing of the table, we are going to find that 2511 date on this. Wait, where is it? Here. On this column right here. Okay. So what do we have? What do we have here? We have the 27th column, which is the absolute. Wait, how did she say it exactly? Okay, 27, column 27 has to do with the circuit taking an absolute quality. The circuit taking an absolute quality. So another important thing is that, because we didn't know this either until this time around, the way that Alejandra routed the, oh yes, because remember that last year when we went through these spaces, it was all horizontally. And it wasn't until this year where we have this new routing in the quadrants, which is like this, where we have -1, -2, and then 7 and 9. This is the first time that we are routing this vertically. So this is the first time that we are realizing this, that this is also why I is so excited. Let's go back to the table. Because we are finding that the 25th of the 11th is right here. Is right here. And what do we find here? Circuits of the particle al. See? So again, with the particle, circuits of the particle right here. And another thing is that we are not, like, we are done with the spaces in black. Like we have, this is so, oh my God. The bridge, You see the bridge? We like the hydrogen bridge, we are finished because we began right here. And right here, this is the first column where we are done with the black spaces. And we look at where we are standing. Circuits for the particle al. So I know I can't even understand it. Of course not. I probably understand like a 1% of this, but I can get excited for some reason. Because it's like, yeah, the bridge. Okay. So that is like the most important thing, I think, from the first part of the program. I will continue. But so that we have time to go through the questions and go over 147, no 40, yeah, 147. Okay. Let's take a little break, 5 minutes, and I'll be back. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about disappearing on you. We had workers here and it just, nope, not you. Huh. Do you hear me? Sound.
I do hear Jeff,
Ah.
but I don't hear Denise.
Yeah, I'm not hearing you, Denise.
I'm not hearing you, Denise, as well.
It almost looks like a recording.
Hmm. I hear you, Jeff, but
Yes, and I hear you.
yes, I think we have the same. Denise, do you hear us? Or? Hmm.
Let me put something. See,
We don't hear you.
we don't hear you. Let me just put something in the chat.
Okay.
Oops. What's going on? Jeez, my computer here. I can't even type in here.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Yes.
Oh. Oh no, I just had so many things. Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, I didn't realize. Okay. Okay. So I don't know what everything I just said. Let's just say we are on Nienke's first question. And if you want to prepare some questions, Jeff, of course, let us know. So we are talking about the 31st of December. Okay. Nienke's first question has to do with what Ale said about the update falls with a certain kind of preference. This
Yes.
is like a little trick from smarty pants consciousnesses from the cosmos that are in some kind of aware of the importance of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of November within the solar code, that they put a specific tone right before, which is the last day of lab 19. Like a previous preference in the codification of the last day of lab 19, like which is the day before the 1st of November, and they insert this specific tone so that then the update that happens, because why are we saying update? Because lap 20 is lap 9 in relation to others. The 1st day of November is the 1st day of the 9th lap in relation to others. So this situation with the Halloween is inserting a specific preference so that that update happens with a previous preference, like a distorted, like an insertion of a distortion right before the update. Okay. Next question from Gaby. Can you expand on your destiny is always in the 4th cardinality? Yeah. So of course that when we're talking about anatomic implementation, it's always going to be in a 3rd dimension. And a 3rd dimension, a unified field, because the SE cardinality, the 4th cardinality, that is the public space, because the only way that we can be materially expressed is inside a collective space. So what is Sol? Sol is a collective space of particles, right? So the only way that me as a particle, can become materially expressed is inside a collective field. And that would be the 4th cardinality. So I cannot have an anatomical destination or destiny if there is no 4th cardinality. My destiny or destination is always going to be linked to the 4th cardinality, to the unified field, to this specific public space. Does that make sense? Or do you have any further questions? Is that a little clearer? Okay. Next question from Nienke. How can we reprogram our lab 4? That happens on lab 20. Remember, I showed you, hold on, let's go back to that.
But I mean, is it just like watching those new graphics that way?
Yes, remember that there's the only thing to do is reason.
Okay.
Reason,
Watching
like
and
we are,
reason.
yeah, because what we're doing, all of us, we're following the development, the beat of the development, the instruction, nonstop, uninterrupted. That's what we have been doing all these years. So because Alejandra is the official descriptor of this signal and this instruction, then us following that description within the lab 20, right? Because of the relation between lab 20, we saw that, right, in the graph, or lab 20 and lab 4. Because 4 has to do with my destination. But in lab 20, we have, because we have gone through all of those labs in between. Between 20 and 4, we have 16 labs. So those 16 labs that we went through from 4 to 20 are going to be allowing us to have a reprogrammation of our lab 20. Like there's another chance to do that. But because we have those 16 labs in between 4 and 20. So it's like a new, another opportunity to reason everything that has happened in between those 16 labs. Okay. It looks like Molly and Jeff want to ask a question? Or no?
Actually, then, just using that reasoning, would lap 5 and lap 21 correspond, and lap 6 and 22 as well?
I don't think so, no. Not exactly. But we would have to go and look specifically. Because maybe they would have a connection in specific dates.
Okay.
But
it's
not
that
like
first.
not like that. But the importance of lab 4 is that on lab 4 we have the 29th of February on a leap year. That's why it's so important. Like it is the update of our destinations. In the Gregorian calendar, that the update falls on lab 4. So we have to take the reins of that with solar consciousness. If not, it's going to be updated for us. Okay. Next question from Gaby. Can you expand on induced balance into the third dimension? Does she mean that the third plane? No, she means the third dimension. This material, the material expression inside the third orbital. That would be the third dimension. So this is very interesting. What does she mean to induce balance into the third dimension? This responsibility is going to fall specifically on the particles that have a specific framework contract, a specific type of consciousness, specific type of scope, which is what we were saying earlier. This responsibility of being in charge or participating in the improvement of the quality of the structure and the improvement of the quality of the code. That is what she means, introducing balance into the third dimension. Why? Because we are working on the improvement of the quality of the code. So if we're working on that, if we're working on the quality of our anti-material infrastructure, if we are working on the quality of our understanding of the space-temporal structures, then there's going to be a solar component, a solar consciousness implemented inside the unified field. So that's gonna translate into introducing balance inside the third dimension, because there's going to be a solar observer active inside the unified field, not just outside, but inside. So we're going to be, from now on, we're going to be re-injecting ourselves, which is what's been happening. We can see Alejandra doing this. And this is related to the Manifiesto series. They spend, I don't know how many years on a parallel timeline, which is kind of what we have been doing these past years. And now all of a sudden, we have landed the plane and we have to inject ourselves back into the unified field. But we're going to do that now with solar consciousness and interstellar consciousness included. So we're going to be active solar observers inside the unified field because we have a solar consciousness included. Okay. Next question from Nienke. Can you explain more about the growth, that the growth depends on how good Ale can explain this? Yes. Because of what we said earlier, Alejandra is the official descriptor of the instruction. She is like the official instructor of this formation. But because of how we have seen how Ale, the process of how Ale got into contact with the instruction and how she had to depersonalize completely and disconnect completely from the human experience and disconnect completely from the memories of the container. Like she was alive, but it was as if she wasn't alive. Like her body was kept alive because of Darío. That is like the importance of Darío. Even though all of that happened in the personal area, in the human, it doesn't matter. Because what Darío provided for the development was the base so that Ale could remain alive while she was basically not alive. She was basically not alive for so many years. So this reinsertion of Alejandra into the unified field, and this low, like coming scale by scale by scale by scale, like structuring from the subatomic instance, because that's where she was for only there for so long in this anatomic timeline. Now the more she is able to describe the signal so that there's more coverage, because if we're thinking in terms of like antenna and emission and coverage, there are some antennas that are not able to provide much coverage, right? If we don't have a really good quality router, then our internet connection is not going to be very good. But if my router is adapted to the specific conditions of the context where I need the signal to provide coverage, then I'm going to have better signal. So it's kind of like that. Alejandra's antenna is acquiring slowly more and more qualities so that when she describes the signal, she is able to provide coverage to more people so that more people can understand. Yeah? Because even inside the community, there are still a lot of ranges of reception in different kinds of antennas in the community that still don't, like Alejandra's emission doesn't quite reach them. So Alejandra's like, the more that I progress on that, the more that I'm going to be able to arrive to the port of the receptor. Alejandra being the issuer of the description of the signal. Yeah, is that, yeah? Okay. Next question by Gaby. The assimilation of next year is not an option. What does she mean by that? And is that for all the species or the solar consciousness? Good question there. When we're talking about assimilation, when we look at the quality that an assimila year is going to have in an apparatus, it's always porting from the demands of the solar consciousness, because it is the solar consciousness the one that's going to do the assimilation. But it is like a requirement of a specific point inside an apparatus. An assimilation of what? Of what has been assumed, what has been received in this assume year of the first year of this apparatus 507. Now, it's apparatus 507. We're talking about arreglario, the fixing, like the fixer of the solar code. So what happened on the first day of the apparatus, the first year of the apparatus? The reception, first year, the reception of, because the first day of the apparatus is connected to the last day of the apparatus. Because if we look at the frequencies of the apparatus, it's going to be 1, and then in the negative, we're going to have 1460. But also 1461, because day 1 is day 1 and day 0 simultaneously. So day 1 of the apparatus is going to be directly connected to day 1, to the last day of the apparatus. So what are we receiving on the first year of the apparatus? The intention, the solar intention of the apparatus, anticipation. So when we're talking about assimilation, that is the quality of the second year of the apparatus. The first 1 is related to reception. 2 is related to functioning. Something is going to start functioning of what has been received on the first year. But this is assimilating, because to assuming is in the SO cardinality. Assuming is SO cardinality. So it's something more that arrives in the mute zone. Maybe we can't explain it that much yet. But on the next year, when we're talking about assimila, we're talking about an E cardinality, which is related to the mind. And specifically to answer Gaby's question, we can modulate and make an interpretation and understanding from the solar perspective and from the human perspective, because it's going to mean 2 different things. What is it going to mean from the solar perspective? That the soul is going to be working on the assimilation of what has been going on in the first year of its apparatus. But from the human, it's going to be kind of like the same thing, but on a fractalized configuration. Okay, so it has the same qualities, but of course, when we're talking about solar instance, there is no human, there is no anatomy. So that's why it's not an option, because it is a requirement and it is a quality of the second year of any apparatus. And because on this specific apparatus, because of everything that we have been talking about in the previous hour and a half, this specific apparatus is an apparatus where things are going to start to manifest, and it's fixed within the fixed and repaired solar code. So this, because I don't know if it happened for you guys, but 2025 was just too much. So I can probably anticipate a little bit that next year we're going to be assimilating what just happened because I have no clue yet. I mean, maybe a little bit, but if we have a little bit of a clue, it's because we are connected to the whole apparatus always. But it is not the same to be anticipating something than to be actually situated in the present moment of emission, where we're going to find so many variables, because that's why Alejandra says, I can't tell you the what's going to happen. No, I can tell you the how. I can't tell you the how things are going to happen. I can tell you the what, but not the how, because the how depends on the variables of the moment of when we arrive at that specific frequency in the solar consciousness, when it becomes the real time. Yeah, is that better, Gaby, or do you want? Oh, and she says, does that all of this species? Yes, of course. Everything inside the fourth cardinality is going to be affected. It is just that we are a little bit more aware of what's happening. But for people that are not very much aware of this, or that don't have this formation or these notions, they're just going to receive the effects associated with all of this, and they're going to just think that everything was magically fixed. But
Okay.
everybody inside the fourth cardinality and the unified field is going to receive the effects of this improvement. So it's good for everybody.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Thank
we can
you.
breathe. We can breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, we can breathe.
Yeah, we can breathe a little bit. Okay. Next question from Nienke. The results depend on the algorithm of the field. Can you expand on that? The process is the most important. So she emphasizes a lot in the difference between the process and the result. And also something that was very clear for me in this moment. She said that the result is not in our reach. And we have been educated the other way around, following the result. Because remember in the very beginning of the development where Alejandra was explaining the unfoldment, where in origin the question and the answer were together, right? And in order to create an existence, that had to be separated. So to the left we have the question, to the right we have the answer. To the right we have the beginning of a process, and to the left and to the right we have the result, right? But so if with this consciousness, what would the result be? It is like an orientation. It's an orientation that's going to allow us to improve the quality of the process. But actually, we want to always be focused on the process, because the process is what is going to provide us with the evolutionary component, not the result. The result is a function of space-time, kind of like the ideal, right? An ideal is something that is never going to be fully fulfilled. It is something that's going to guide us to improve the quality of the processes. Same thing with our result. Okay, I want a specific result. That result is going to be something that's going to be orienting me to be more focused on improving the quality of the processes. The processes of what? The processor. The processor of what? The flow of signals. If we are not focused in improving the quality of our processing of signals, we're only focused on the result, what's going to happen? The flow of signals is going to not be very good to me, to my personal experience. It's not going to be very good because I am not focused on the present, because the result is in the future, right? And once I arrive there, it's like, this isn't what I was expected most of the time. So where is the process? In the present. And then once we get to a result, it's like, okay, this is nice, but the result is always going to be improvable, because the ideal is not going to be able to be fulfilled, because that's perfection. We would have to cease to exist to arrive that ideal state of existence that we desire, and that we have been taught to desire that perfection, and to be fighting and in friction with our flaw. So main thing, I don't have a conflict with my flaw anymore. I do not fall into self-rejection anymore when I make a mistake. I really don't. I don't fall into guilt anymore. I observe and I put the lupa, remember, culpa, lupa, magnifying glass. Okay, take out my magnifying glass and look at my defect or my flaw really closely, but I do not fall into self-rejection. Because why? Because I understand that an ideal is something that will never be. So the best thing that I can do is be friends with my defect, get to know my defect very well, modulate it, use it to my advantage to create new virtues. Because if I don't do that, I'm always going to be not living here. Okay, so what's going to be diverting me from living in the process? Friction with my flaw. Friction with failing, friction with wanting to be perfect all the time. That's going to divert me into wanting to live in a future where things are better, instead of focusing on the actual real time, becoming friends with my flaw, becoming friends with the things that make me uncomfortable and the things that I don't like, and stand there and work from there to improve it. That's what that is. So when she says the result is depend on the algorithm of the unified field. Why? Why is that not within my reach? Because the result includes all the variables of the unified field. It includes all of the contents that are interacting in the fourth cardinality. So yeah, it's not within my reach. All that I can do is improve the process so that when I arrive to a result, that result is going to be improved by the quality of my process. Imagine if we are all improving the quality of our processes and then we reach a result that is collective, because our result is always going to be linked to other contents inside the unified field. Now, if we are all working on improving our processes and we collectively reach a result, now that result is going to have a better algorithm because it's going to include something that is collective. Next question from Gaby. The update of 9 was not programmed in the collective memory. So when we're talking about an update, if we look at the calculator, where is 9? 9 is situated in a subatomic level. When we're talking about subatomic, we are not talking, it is completely separated, parallel to the anatomic, right? We're talking about the source. 9, we're talking about source, primary unfoldment, the source. So 9 represents an update that is coming from the antimatter directly. That's why it's not, if it's an update, it's not programmed in the collective memory. An update, oh, Gaby, did you hear me? No, she didn't hear the answer. I just answered your last question.
Oh.
But that's okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's recorded.
Yes.
But the thing is that 9 is an update because it's arriving from the antimatter. That's why it's not going to be recorded in the unified field. Anything that we can find in the memory of the collective field is going to be a memory. But when we're talking about an update that it's arriving from antimatter, that's why it's not going to be pre-programmed. It's going to be unprecedented. But we weren't prepared before, like our code wasn't prepared before to receive those kinds of updates that now Sol, because of the maturity or the evolutionary state of the sun specifically, is receiving now, the challenges that the sun as a star is receiving now. We now have to be independently prepared to receive that quality, that level of update. We don't self-destruct, because if an update comes and the receiver is not prepared to receive that range of update, then it destroys. It destroys the matter, the existence, which is what has happened before.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Baratal. Okay, your last question. I think we went through it a little bit in the explanation of 148. Was that a little clearer for you, Nienke, or? Yeah. So that's that. How do you guys feel? I think it was really good.
Yes. And can you already explain more about the next event? Because she said that she would say more about that in the last meeting, but I don't know anything about it yet.
Okay, let me look at it. So there are 2 dates. It's going to be on June and August, event 74 and 75. Okay. So it's going to be in Córdoba, same place where we had event 73 this past November, this past 7, 8, and 9 of November. Córdoba, Argentina. The dates are 6, 7, and 9 of June. The dates for August are not available yet because we have to fill up the vacants for event 74 in order to open up the dates of event 75. But it is June and it is August. It is a small town. La Cumbre is a small town. There are several little places to be lodged. We can be lodged on the hotel where the event is going to take place. And then we can be lodged in another hotel that is right there, like across the street. Those are the two hotels that I know about. It does not include transportation. It does not include food. This event 73 did not include any food or transportation or anything like that. So that's going to be by our own hands. And yeah, the main thing I think is just the lodging and the transportation from the airport to Cordoba, which is like an hour. It is a little bit far away, but we have been there, so we kind of like are used to that commute. So yeah, that's basically what she has said. So if you want to write yourself down for the event, you have to send an email to Decide Giardino. Remember that Decide Giardino email and ask for information so that we can begin our process of inscription for the events.
And for whom is it open? Only 7-Eleven or?
No.
Also
People that have
from
been
outside?
people that have been to physical events.
Oh, only people who have gone.
Only people who have gone to events.
But you
since
were
2013.
also,
Yeah?
Jeff and Molly, you were also to event, to live
I
events.
was, but Molly wasn't.
Not
Yeah.
Molly. Okay. Yeah.
Ah,
So Jeff
Molly.
can come. Yeah. That's a requirement for this apparatus, but it might change next apparatus.
Gotcha.
I think it will.
Ah,
I think it
okay.
will. Maybe.
Mhm.
So that's that, you guys. I will see you in the cycle meeting, which is on the 2nd of December. And I will see Gaby also soon for another thing that we have to do.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really nice to see you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you for
you.
being here. And my apologies for, being so late with the material and all, but I've been just moving around a lot. And it has been this year was very chaotic for me, but we are back.
What
And
you did
hopefully.
was great. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank
See
you
you
very
soon.
much, Denise.
Okay.
No.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.